If you've got the brass, polish it. Where did that come from? I don't know. Well, hello again, and welcome to the south of Liverpool, in the area we know as Allerton. And I've come here today to photograph two things really. One is an 18th century house, which is grade 2 star, so significant in its own right. Sadly, it's now been converted into one of these carveries, restaurant cum pub, and in my honest opinion, it has suffered because of that. And the other interesting building that we have in Clark Gardens, by the way, that's the name of the place where I am. The other interesting item in Clark Gardens is a World War II period pillbox, which I will take you to and show you now. Well, here we are. This, as you can probably guess, dates from the Second World War, probably 1941, and I can be relatively accurate with that, even though it is a guess, so don't pull me up if it's wrong. I'll explain why a little bit later. It's a pillbox or a bunker, depending on how you want to look at it, and it's in the south of Liverpool, alongside a fairly busy main road, trunk road, and we have a cemetery to one side, and we have Allerton Hall over to my right. And most people driving past would not give it a second glance. For me, it's historically very interesting. It's one of the very few, if not the only, pillbox of its type still left in Liverpool. And it even has a fireplace in there. I'm not going to be able to do much filming. I am not going to crawl inside it, even though the entranceway it's theoretically possible, but I'm past that. So I'm going to take some photographs of it, and just as a record for myself, if nothing else really. There's not a great deal I can do creatively, I don't think, given the equipment I've got with me today. So we're going to have a little bit of a wander around it, give you some video, and then I'll take some stills. It's well outside the city centre, and it would therefore be well away from any areas likely to get bombed during the Blitz of 1941. So why on earth has it been constructed here? Well, that's why I can be relatively specific about the year. Because in 1941, the British government decided to amalgamate all the regional fire brigades, fire service, into one for the whole country. And although it was split up into regions, nevertheless, it was known as the National Fire Service. And I think I've got an emblem of their logo to show you. Now, the interesting thing is that Allerton Hall, the 18th century building that I'm going to show you very shortly, became the regional headquarters of the National Fire Service here in the northwest of England. And that happened in 1941. So that's why I can be pretty certain that the pillbox dates from the same period. It would have formed part of a defence of the headquarters building. Now, the current Allerton Hall building that is on site is an 18th century construction built for a wealthy slave trader. So I'm not going to go into any more details other than that. But it stands on the site of a much earlier house. So I'm going to take some photographs of that, and you're probably wondering, what on earth am I going to be shooting today? Well, after about 12 months, I thought it was time that I told you my thoughts after a good deal of use on the Sony A7 Mark II. So I've come out with that today, with the standard 50mm 1.8 autofocus lens and my battered old 28mm 3.5 Takuma. I'm just going to walk through the trees here and give you a view of the house. There you are, Allerton Hall. Not sure whether you'll pick it up on the video from here. I will go and give you a closer look in a moment. But they do have kind of sweet machines and drinks dispenser machines in the entranceway, which are just so tacky in a building so beautiful. As I say, it's 18th century, built in the Palladian style. Now, Palladian gets its name from a Venetian by the name of Palladio, and his belief was that for buildings to be beautiful, they had to be symmetrical and they had to be in the correct proportions. Hence why buildings of this type are known as Palladian in style. As you can see, it's pretty much symmetrical, equally balanced and in proportion, I suppose you would say. So the Sony A7 Mark II. For those of you that have followed the channel, you'll probably remember that I had the Mark I version of this quite briefly, and I was very fortunate to get this with, I forget what the zoom range was now, but I bought this camera with a Sony zoom on it, I think 28-70, I might be wrong on that one. I'm sure I can correct myself down below. But I purchased that for a really good price, and I actually basically sold the Mark I with that zoom lens for the same price that I paid for the Mark II body, with a 50mm 1.8 standard lens, just the ordinary nifty 50. But I bought it specifically because those of you, as I say, that follow the channel will know that I enjoy shooting vintage lenses. And I wanted a full frame camera purely to use them and get the same coverage as they were and are designed for. For my general photography, I shoot micro four thirds. I have Olympus and Panasonic cameras, but with the 2x crop factor, it takes away, for me anyway, the enjoyment of shooting vintage lenses and getting the same angle of view that they were designed for. So that's why I got the Sony, and that's why I'm using a full frame camera. In the past, years ago, I got rid of all my full frame gear. I think the last full frame outfit I had was a Canon 5D Mark II with 3 or 4 different lenses. It all got very heavy and too bulky for me to carry around, so then I went down to APS-C and Fuji cameras, and from Fuji I've gone down to micro four thirds. I say down, personally I don't feel down in terms of quality. I mean down in terms of bulk and weight, particularly with regard to the lenses. I mean, to give you an idea, if I take the standard 50mm lens off this and replace it with the vintage lens that I bought with me and its adapter, suddenly it becomes a much bulkier bit of kit. You know, it's a fairly weighty item now, and so I don't want to get involved in carrying too much full frame stuff around with me. When I do shoot it with vintage glass, I tend to take maybe 2 lenses with me tops, sometimes 3 depending on what they are. However, getting back to the point, Alan, what do I think of the Sony A7 Mark II? First and foremost, it feels more solidly built than the Mark I version, more durable. It does, of course, have 5-axis image stabilization. In my opinion, nothing like as good as Olympus, but maybe that's to be argued. But it does have image stabilization. It's 24 megapixel, which is more than enough for me. I'm very happy with the 20 megapixel that I get off the Olympus EM1 Mark II. It's phase detect autofocus, so it's a very competently built camera. It's a single card slot. If that rules it out for you, then so be it. Nothing much I can do about that. Single card slot, SD cards, of course. And it's just a capable machine. Battery life, I don't have an issue with, but there again, I'm not pushing it. It takes a fairly small battery, the NP-FW50, but that will last me all day in the way that I use the camera. The lens, yes, it's very battered. But it still performs okay. I've done some stills of the pillbox behind me and a couple of shots of the house up the way there. So I wanted to combine this location really with my thoughts on the camera. I have complained before about the shutter noise on it, which is not brilliant. You know, it sort of, yeah, it's there and it works. It lacks, obviously, some of the facilities that the EM1 Mark II offers me. But in terms of doing what I ask it to do, it's more than competent. It's a grey morning this morning, so what I'm going to do now, while I'm here in Clark Gardens, I'm going to have a wander around and see if I can do some more attractive shots of the pillbox, but I think that's probably asking rather too much. So let's get some more stills taken, and then I'll finish off the video. Very austere buildings these, aren't they? But of course that's for a purpose. I'll do a vertical one, I think. That was at 3.5. I'm going to stop it down to f11 and cut out most of the sky. That's going to give me, ooh, that's only a 40th, so let's check out the image stabilization. We'll see what that one's like. I think I might also try one with the 50mm 1.8. Perhaps focus more on the grasses in the foreground rather than the pillbox in the background. Let's try something like this. It's a little bit breezy, so no way am I going to be using a 40th of a second here. .5, 125th, focusing on an ear of grass in front of me, letting the background blur out. Let me do one at 1.8, and that should be with an even more blurred background, I hope anyway, if all goes to plan. Now I think I'm going to concentrate more on a close-up, try and get some texture. We'll stop this right down now because I am rather close. Let's go down to f8. There's an awful lot of texture in this concrete, but not much colour. However, there's a little tiny section just here with some moss growing on it. 15th f8. I think I'm pushing it there, but I'm going to try this anyway. Okay. I like the sky formation here. I'm going to move closer to this tall clump of grass. Just going to put this clump of grass against the dark trees behind. Just double check my focus. I'm going to focus on the grasses again. Like so, I think. Yep. This is not going to be a very successful shot, I don't think. But we'll try it anyway. There we are. I think that's my outing taken care of for the day. So there you are. We have Allerton Hall and the pillbox. Mystery explained. It's not really a mystery, but it's just that very many locals don't appreciate why this building is here, practically in the middle of nowhere, apparently guarding an 18th century mansion. And that's the reason. The mansion happened to be the regional headquarters of our National Fire Service during World War II. Getting back to the topic in question, or the other topic in question, the A7 Mark II, competent. It's been thoroughly reliable for me. There's not a mark on it yet, which probably indicates how little I use it in comparison to my Micro Four Thirds outfit. But nevertheless, am I glad that I bought it? The answer is yes. Would I recommend anybody else to buy one in 2025? Yes. If you've got the money to go for one of their, I don't know, what are they, 60 odd megapixel models these days, then help yourself. To me, it's kind of overkill. But nevertheless, if that's what you want, then go for it, you know. If you've got the brass, polish it. Where did that come from? I don't know. So there we are, from Allerton Hall and its associated pillbox. I'm going to say enjoy your photography, get out and use whatever equipment you have, whether it's the very latest megapixel monster, or like I use sometimes, one of the 10-year-old cameras with 12 megapixels. Use it, and that way you'll get improvements in your photography. Until next week, look after yourselves. Bye-bye for now.